I just read your tag.
You know what? This is going in the episode because we don't
Yep.
edit here. On March 18th, 1984, Katsuhisa Izaki, the president of the Izaki Glico Company, was kidnapped by two unknown assailants at 9 p.m. They were armed with what first appeared to be a pistol and rifle, although later speculation led some to believe they were toy guns used for the purposes of intimidation. They had earlier broken into the home of his mother, Izaki. I forgot to put her name, so I'm sorry. That's her surname. Who lived in a neighboring house beside his and bound her so that she would be immobile and so that they could steal a key to his home. They had also tied up Katsuhisa's wife, Mikieko, and his oldest daughter, Mariko, but had left his other two children, Yukiko and Etsuro, unbound as they were sleeping and completely unaware of the attack. Katsuhisa had been in the bath as this was occurring and was kidnapped at this time without being clothed and was taken away to Ibaraki in the Osaka prefecture. A message was sent to a director of his company demanding the ransom of 1 billion yen, which would be $4.44 million in 1984, and also 100 kilograms, 220 pounds of gold bullion. This, however, was never exchanged, as Katsuhisa was able to escape his captors 3 days into the attack and return home. But they were not done, and several weeks later, they gave a letter to the police, followed by a second letter a month later, where they proclaimed themselves the monster with 21 faces, and that they had just begun their infamous crime spree. Here we have one of the most compelling mysteries of history and the mysterious threat propagated by the individual or group known as the monster with 21 faces, which we will be discussing tonight on Friday Night Frights. I'm your host, Christian Ashley, a systematic geekology and like 10 other things, here to terrify and instruct you all on the weird, unusual, fascinating, fantastical, and unexplainable things that may or may not lurk out there in the world. I am joined by my co-host, Joe the Broken. How's it going, Joe?
Oh, fantastic. It has been too long since we've done one of these, and we are in for it. I know just enough to be dangerous, but I am here for the ride with everybody else.
Yeah. So, as you may have once again noticed, I don't know why we're about to say anything. There was a gap in between time,
Love it.
multiple factors. I made the joke about Joe the Broken. Like, Joe suffered some harm. He's recovering from still to this day. If you're watching this on YouTube, he's standing up, not because he thinks he's superior to you, even though that's probably true, but because, it's helping with his therapy right now to actually stand instead of sit. I don't
Yep.
want to take any more away from you, Joe. You want to go any further now? You good with that? Just that.
Yeah, no, I mean, learn what proper training frequency looks like, and you'll avoid injuries in your 30s. So, like, that's really the moral of the story. Um, yeah, so I wanted to grab the reins of the episode real quick at the very beginning and let people know, like, I understand that we are a variety show. I liken it to a modern version of Unsolved Mysteries, like that sort of feel, right? And so,
Yeah.
when we talk about like true crime stuff and all of that, you'll notice something, viewers. It tends to be outlandish. We tend to pick cases or stories that are a bit more story driven, a bit more out there, namely because in my experience, um, I cut my teeth broadcasting with the a group called the Innocence Project out of Texas, and did real life cold cases, and it was a whole podcast thing, where you take a case and you kind of go through it, and you're trying to stimulate people sharing details that were there from that period of time and kind of crowdsource information and all of that jazz. So these stories to me, while we laugh about it, and we're going to have a laugh about today once we shake, rattle, and roll, these ones to me are a bit heavier than talking about spooky stuff, talking about ghosts, talking about all of those kinds of things, um, and a bit more tactile in nature to me. And so, if you're wondering why we're not doing the 75th Ted Bundy documentary, or we're talking about the date match game killer, whatever that's called, whatever the actual phrasing of it is,
Match game.
um, match game killer. There we go. If that's the kind of stories that you're coming to this show for a on a week like this, Sorry, because those aren't the kind of things that we're probably going to be talking about. But I say all of that to say it's for good reason, and we do appreciate the gravity of cases like this, even while we are making light and joking and all of that sort of jazz.
Thanks, Joe. So I'd like to remind everyone that our schedule is to, once again, allegedly, once a month, cover one of six categories, those being cryptozoology, the paranormal, religious strangeness, the weird and the unexplained, true crime, and ufology. We're in true crime. Next month will be in ufology. I've already told Joe about that. We'll get there when we get there. So, Joe, I know the answer to this, but for the good people involved, like, do you have a history exploring the topic of the monster with 21 faces? Or before that, without knowing the context, what did you think that it was?
I definitely didn't think that it was the little bit that I do happen to know. Honestly, I thought it was some kind of cult or something along those lines.
Mm,
Like I thought we were in for some cult nonsense. My background with this case is exactly, I don't know, 14 minutes of YouTube research, and then realized that, you know what, this is probably better presented as me learning along with the whole lot of you. So that way, we are in this thing together. I know enough to know the beginning salvo, which is ridiculous enough in and of itself, but we'll get to the entire thing. So not very much whatsoever.
that's totally fair. This is not really like an obscure case, but it's one of those, if you're not in the like sphere of influence where I tend to run into, you're not really gonna know about it that much. And it's one of those like I thought I knew everything that had happened. The more research I did, it's like, oh, I don't know like surface level stuff. And it's like, wow, this is amazing. Because I first heard about this probably maybe a decade ago.
Okay.
Um, I was I was writing for a series that's never going to come to light. And I was looking for weird nonsense to be like, hey, can I make an episode based around this? And I saw the monster with 21 faces. And, I love research. I love doing all this stuff. So I looked it up. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. I built an episode idea based around it. Once again, for a series that's never going to see the light of day at this point in time. But the reveal was going to be something about the 21 faces were actually going to be 21 literal faces from Slavic mythology of dragons in there because
Huh.
they were multi-headed.
Okay.
And they was doing committing crimes because they had fallen off that far as like people believing in them, very American gods as it were.
Yeah.
Not saying anything about the author anymore now, but that was what was heavily inspired there. So yeah, there will be no dragons today outside of that. Um, but I have since grown since then and moved on to bigger, better things. And this mystery is one of those that's like it could have been solved at one point in time, but things just went wrong every
Yep.
single time.
Yep.
And that fascinates me. You look into the amount of people who worked and looked into this case. You think, how could they not have it? Well, they just didn't have the evidence, and they didn't get the right people involved. So enough of that, Joe. I described what caused things to happen in the first place here. The first attempt by this group of people, or just one person using mooks, as it were. Like, what's your like response to like the initial kidnapping?
So the weird details about like the actual event itself, like he was in the bath essentially stark naked, and like this
Yes.
there could be toy guns, and like even from the get, this almost feels like slapstick theater a little bit. You know what I mean? Like there's like an air of a lack of gravity to what's actually happening here.
Yeah, it's one of those. Like, one of the reasons they think they may have been toy guns is that number one, they don't know who's involved. So, in one of the kind of profiles that came up with, this may be a group of people, not to spoil things along the way, who like don't know what they're doing and decided to let's try and make some easy money, as it were, and failed completely and utterly multiple times over. And they got the toy guns to make someone think they had legitimate guns. Or if you take other hypotheses out there, this could be the Yakuza or Yakuza, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Um, who actually legitimately had guns, because Japan as a nation does not have the gun culture that, say, in America has. They're far more strictly regulated. Fewer people are going to have access to things like this. You're either like in the military, or you're part of a gang or something like that, or you're rich enough to afford things in ways other people can't,
Yeah.
to actually own a legitimate gun. And the whole thing, like, it's one of those things, like, when you're looking through this case, you'll see like the wacky hijinks, but also like terrible implications of what's being done. And one of those is like they still bound up his family. Like they
Yeah.
attacked his mother first, who was in her 70s, if I remember correctly, from reading
Yeah.
everything. And like, who knows how long she would have been there if police hadn't gotten involved in the first place. Uh, his wife, his child, the other two children, they didn't go after because they were asleep, which I guess some humanity there. Like, going after him in the bath. Well, what other time are you more vulnerable than when you're in, the bathroom, restroom? Like, probably not going to be ready to Jason Bourne your way out of that situation.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things. Like, you look at this, like, you think there's a higher mind here, but whether or not they don't hire the best people,
Yeah.
or there's just the appearance of intelligence. Like, it's one of those things you just got to come to your own conclusions on. It's so very funny to me
Yeah. So,
in the midst of the horror.
one of the things that, if you don't know, that you should probably understand about Japanese crime is it uses the same influence as their social structure, family dynamics, family honor, all of those things. That's a much different philosophy there than it is here. We will there are strokes about Japanese culture when it comes to family that we just wouldn't conceive of here in the States. Um, so part of the reason why this seems like, at least at the very beginning, before all manner of nonsense actually starts, that this is pretty boilerplate Yakuza crime, is because the Yakuza have been historically, will go after family for all of those reasons, understanding that that's like the deepest that you can cut and all of that. And then, like you said, as far as gun culture goes, by and large, weapons trade and most illegal activity is going through the Yakuza. And so,
Yes.
like, it's very broad and kind of all encompassing to say that this is specifically the Yakuza doing this.
It's one of those things you just got to make your own,
Yeah.
decisions on who did this in the end here. And the thing that happens next is that, the police and the newspapers receive this letter, and we're going to have multiple letters here. Like, I debated putting these up, because, people put their manifestos and stuff out there, uh, Unabombers and like, and kind of go, should I do that? Am I like encouraging people to read what they wanted people to read, kind of thing? But I think we
Yeah.
get a little more of who these people are through reading these letters in a way that isn't like, they're not calling for the deaths of people or anything like that, or the death of a society or what have you,
Yeah.
as you see like in other ones. So going through this, if you disagree, you disagree. No, but here we go. To the police fools. You will see this is a very common thread. Are you all stupid? What the hell are you doing with all that manpower? If you're professionals, then come on, catch us. We'll give you a hint since you're so handicapped. There are none of us among Izaki's relatives. There are none of us among the Nishinomiya police. There are none of us among the Flood Prevention Corps. The car I bought was gray, and the food I brought was from Daiei. If you want more information, ask us for it in the newspapers. After telling you all this, you should be able to catch us. If you can't, then you're just tax leeches. Shall we kidnap the head of the prefectural police too?
The tax leech,
So you're
the
going to see them
tax
up,
leech line is just so good. Like, that's just such a burn. Like,
right?
that was well done. And that's part of where, like, I don't have a mind, or I don't have a problem with reading this one, because one of the big gripes that I tend to have around true crime culture versus horror fan culture is, as horror fans, by and large, we understand, and we're walking into the experience of taking in the media that we appreciate with the understanding that this is fake, that this is a story, that this is a movie, a TV show, or whatever that has been created by something. With true crime, you don't get that level of disconnection. And when it goes out of the realm of, oh, it's interesting to hear a story, into amateur people that don't have any psychological training thinking that they are psychoanalyzing these horrific human beings that committed these incredible atrocities, and it becomes this culture of like immortalizing these people in all of these different works. Miss me with that. Like that's not that's where you've gone off the rails. You've missed the point. Whatever. Like what you like and don't be a dick. Right. Like I love that culture, but also let's not memorialize monsters out here. Okay. And so
Yes.
when you've got that and somebody like giving their manifesto and all of that sort of jazz, yeah, no, they can die in anonymity is what they can do. But when it's somebody that like the story is that they were never like that they were anonymous and that they're not trying to be in the limelight in the purest sense, like having a strict manifesto, a strict script, an idea that they're trying to convey, and all of that sort of jazz. Like, there's a part of me, like, don't get me wrong, I understand the horror of it all. I do, but I also understand, or I also can appreciate a good chaos gremlin. I can appreciate just screwing with people. You know what I mean? Like that level of it, like, oh, haha, that's a little funny. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. But that to me is different than like serial killer manifesto sort of deal. But like, I went through and having for anybody listening, I want you to understand that I'm not breaking my own rule because I actually have psychological training. Thank you very much. But so I went through and I kind of like, I tried to take some time and analyze those opening notes, right? Because I don't know much more than this. We're pretty much hitting the wall on the amount of research that I've done so far. But like this, I did, and I'm like none. Like I understand that most of what I missed is probably cultural references and things like that I wouldn't necessarily understand as an American. But also like the assortment of details that are given, and then like, did the person actually think that they gave enough for the people to solve for officials to solve the crime, or was it just, haha, you should be able to get this, otherwise you suck, and really I didn't give you enough, haha, double screw you. But like, or did they actually think that they had given enough puzzle pieces that they wanted investigators to engage in the game?
It could very well be it. In that, so yeah, we're missing some cultural context here and some of the stuff here, like the Nishinomiya police, that's like nearby station there. The Flood Prevention Corps are multiple groups across Japan in multiple areas who are, because Japan floods immensely, especially with typhoons and the like that come this way, especially after earthquakes. So they need people there to, be a part of that. So if they're saying we're not there, that means you can list them off. Like, you're not part of the family, we're not part of the police, we're not part of the prevention corps there. So we're narrowing down your suspects, guys. And the reason we're doing that and giving all this information to you because we think it's still not going to be good enough is what some people speculate it to be. And we don't know the answer. I kind of tend to go towards that idea because if I were that, I don't know if I would do the double bluff if I actually am a member of the Flood Prevention Corps, and I hope they don't investigate me.
Yeah.
Which is certainly possible, but it also kind of depends on how you characterize these people and how they kind of characterize themselves. Like, can you believe them? And do you think they're actually masterminds or idiots masquerading as masterminds?
Right. And that's and the one conclusion that I came to at that point, like just in the brief point that I got to, was that either they were narcissistic, like fully and completely, or they were chaotic neutral,
Hmm.
because it seems like they are viewing themselves in a position of moral superiority.
And that could definitely play into what would be one of the other suspects brought up later on, whether this was a far right or a far left group in Japan, more in the 70s than the 80s, but still at that point in time had plenty of splinter groups of various causes on either side of the equation. This is Japanese politics, not American, by the way. So, don't fly your flags in this one. It won't make much sense. So their right and far left aren't exactly like equivalent at times to ours. If so, that's what's in your mind. You need a little more research. Like, yeah, there's still communism far left, authoritarian far right, but like very, very different things. And so that was speculation there. It's like because of who they're targeting, could it be for a reason like this? Like they would go after an executive because of XYZ, which we'll get there when we get there. All right. So next up on our docket, on April 10th, so almost a month after the initial kidnapping, several vehicles located at the trial production building affiliated with Glico, the company that he worked for, were set on fire. 6 days later, a plastic container filled with hydrochloric acid was discovered in Ibaraki in a location very close to what was suggested may have been potentially would have been used for an attack on a person or something else in that area. So it could be something completely unrelated. Who knows? Uh, then we moved to April 23rd. The group then sent a second letter out to the local papers and the police, where this is when they named themselves as the monster with 21 faces for the first time.
Oh, they
Before this,
named themselves. Okay,
yes,
that's
they
interesting.
had no clue who these people were. They hadn't given anything. And there's a cultural thing here we'll get into in a moment about why they would pick something like that. And this is what they put in the letter. To police fools, you shouldn't lie. If you lie, you steal. I also sent this to the Koshian police. Why are you lying? Don't hide things. Why are you complaining? You guys are having such a hard time, so I will give you a hint. I entered the factory from the side staff entrance. The typewriter we used is PAN writer. I'm sure that meant something in the 80s. The plastic container used was a piece of street garbage. Signed, the monster with 21 faces.
That's
So
funny.
once again, you see a disdain for the police, which once again could apply to any of the potential suspects we've already listed off at some point in time here. Obviously, criminals would have no love for the police. Far left, far right extremists would have no love for them in one way because they represent the man, as it were. Um, Potentially, environmentalists being anti the groups that are here could also possibly be something. So it's so childish, but like I get it. Like, if you could get away with doing this, you're anonymous. Like, this is before the internet becomes known, in the main world, as it were. So you can hide behind this letter you send off, and you can call people fools. You can call the police fools and get away with it. I mean, I get the appeal of doing something like that.
I do. Yeah, I mean, it's the same idea as to why we've got an entire culture of people who are far too comfortable saying things from behind a keyboard than they probably
Uh
should
huh.
be. You know what I mean? Like under the
Yes.
cloak of anonymity, you really see what makes people tick and all of that. And for what it's worth, and we're kind of again we're inching closer and closer to the cap of my Japanese culture knowledge. So I'm not going to sit here and propose like I'm some kind of expert on all of these things. But to me, it really seems like the language being used and like the word choice is very Japanese humor coded to me. Like I feel like somebody is intentional in what they're saying, and like it gives an air like they know exactly what they're doing, that they fundamentally believe that they are stringing everybody along and in that place of power.
One thing that's very important to note here is that, unlike America, Japan is not a very individualistic country. It
No.
is very, you are working for the community and you have your space doing that. And if you don't do that, you're the one in the wrong because
Mhm.
you're not getting in line with everyone else. That's why
Yeah.
years ago when the other World Cup before this one that just happened, it was noted like, oh, it was amazing. The Japanese fans, they would pick up the garbage and they put it away because there's a societal expectation that if you don't do that, you are trash, literally yourself. So
Yep.
why would we look after you if you don't look after me? Which, pros and cons to individuality and, this whole collective thing here. Like they're not all mindless drones. We're not going to do something like that. But that's very common in Japanese media is the idea of seeing themselves as, just a member of a hive, as it were,
Yeah.
of an
Yeah.
anthill, of, a beehive and just being an individual drone in that sense, because that's what you're meant to be. Other people are supposed to be above you doing their thing. So you just stick to your lane.
Yep.
So someone being able to voice things like this, I think could potentially be a reason behind excuse me, why they're doing what they're doing. As well, going against the police, something I don't think I'm sure you're not aware of is that the last I researched this, in conviction rates in Japan, they have a 99% like case, like we are solving this case, 99% conviction rate. The other 1%, it's kind of like a Kardashian court in many respects. Like, is what the feeling is for some people. It's like, we're going to prove that you're guilty.
Yeah.
So that's why we're having the trial, is what some people believe it is. And not to say it's not a monolith, but there's a reason people would reject something like that because there's no way 99% conviction rate. Yeah,
Right.
those numbers are off because you're doing that to like make us feel good. So I think that's maybe a motivation here for them. Like, why are you lying about this? You're not telling everyone the truth about what we did. Is because you're not ready yet? It's because you don't have all the resources behind it. Well, I feel sorry
That's
for you, man.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I did not know that, and that makes. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. That would be a spot that they would target.
Yeah, I don't know because that was from several years ago when I read this. After I played Persona 5, it was like, there's no way they talked about that and it's real. I was like, oh yeah, very, very much real, because it's a huge plot point in that game of the system being broken in that sense. Because like you look at the numbers, there's no way you have a 99% conviction rate
Right.
on every trial you do. So maybe the numbers are different now. Maybe there's been some reforms. I don't know, but that's what I'm aware of.
No.
Uh,
Yeah.
I would say, knowing what little of Japan that I do, I highly doubt things have changed.
Oh yeah. No. 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 At least to my knowledge, no.
Yeah. All right. And I say this as someone who's never been there. So once again, I'm always free to being corrected. Once again,
Yep.
if I mispronounce the Japanese name along the way, it's not coming from malice or some American superiority thing. It's like I just looked at the thing I saw written down, so I chose to pronounce it that way.
Yep.
So we get to the actual moniker itself that they give themselves, the Monster with 21 Faces. This is derived from a set of novels written by Edogawa Rampo, who has a villain there named the Fiend with 20 faces. So some people think this is kind of like, oh, you think he's pretty cool? We'll give another level. We're 21 faces, guys. You don't know how many
Mm.
of us there are. And he's called the Fiend with 20 faces because he's very much a gentleman thief. He fights against, he serves as kind of like the Moriarty, as it were, to the detective main character of Rampo's novels, Kogoro Akechi. Um, so there's also kind of like an Arsène Lupin kind of there, for the French side of things, who also fought in a novel that he wasn't allowed to write, him fighting Sherlock Holmes way back in the day. Him and Conan Doyle got into it legally over whether or not he could do that.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I mentioned Persona 5. This is where Goro Akechi, our kind of character working with the police, as it were, in that situation, gets his name from this main character. He started in the 30s, if I remember correctly, writing these novels like pre-war, well, pre-World War II, but in the midst of attacking Manchuria and going after these other nations as well before World War II started. So Akechi kind of serves as this guy who's like always seeking perfect justice, you know, and a Fiend with 20 faces is kind of like, you've got your perfect justice, I've got my perfect evil, as it were. So I'm gonna put on all these disguises, get things done to like steal this stuff from under your nose. So probably someone who thinks of themselves as a gentleman thief kind of area, or like wants to think of themselves as such, has been the main speculation for why they would choose this. Any thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, that lines up with what seems to be close to the surface read of what they're saying. Like it seems like they are positioning themselves in a place of moral superiority, at least, if not superiority in the actual function of what they're doing. And so that seems like a layup to say that this is a culture that has an appreciation for the content and things that are created around them, and so it would be in line with the culture to have somebody or somebodies um taking inspiration, I guess, from a collected work like that.
I should also mention too, like this is around the time, a little before then, where we get Lupin the Third, as you know, a manga series and an anime series, where he is supposedly this will be grandson of Arsène Lupin, the French gentleman thief, as it were, and another sense of cultural appropriation, the same way he did it to Sherlock Holmes. So this would be in people's minds the idea, oh, what was the influence from that? Well, one of the influences would have been this set of novels uh, in the public consciousness. So maybe that's what they were thinking of. Once again, it's hard to tell for a fact, given the spoilers. Once again, we don't know who did this.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I
All right.
think makes this case so intriguing, is because you don't have a clear cut explanation for any of it.
Yeah. Everyone has their pet theories and hypotheses involved here, but at the end of the day, it's one of those you just got to shrug your head. They just shrug your shoulders and go, ah.
Yep.
So next up, in their reign of terror, we have May 10th, where another letter was sent, and they threatened Glico, the company, with the knowledge that they had laced unknown amounts of the candy they produced with potassium cyanide. This led to the company facing a 21 million yen loss as they removed their products from the stores to be safe, as well as laying off 450 part-time employees because of public backlash. And we can't let our kids have this candy, which makes perfect sense. So that may be another reason for why they were doing what they're doing, to like kill some of these companies and lose the public's faith in them. Now, it was around this time that one of our first suspects, as it were, kind of comes in without a name. And this is a man who was wearing a Yomiuri Giants baseball cap. The Yomiuri Giants was a local, not local to this area, but local to Japan baseball team. And he was seen planting candy in a local store by the store's security camera. This image was released initially just to the police, then to the public. And they were hoping for an identification that never came. And the candy that they were putting up was indeed laced with the same thing. So it seems like they were for sure either with them or some copycat killer, as it were. I mean, either possible, but more than likely working with them.
Yeah. I feel like other countries get way more creative with their crime than America does. Like they're not just going for the standard boilerplate crime. Like, no, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna inject poison into candy and put it on the shelves. Like that sounds fake. That sounds like AI wrote that. Like, you know what they did then? They put cyanide in the gummy worms, guys. You know what I mean? But like,
It's a Halloween folk tale everyone hears every Halloween. It's like, oh no, they're putting the
right?
drugs or they're putting the razor blades into all the candy.
That's a good point. I wonder what predates what.
Um,
If the old tale of the razor blade in the apple sort of thing predates this, or if it's the other way around.
I think it would predate this because there's something I'm going to say. You said it was a very not American thing, but we'll get to something in a bit that started before this in America that has changed the entire medical world as we know it.
Okay.
So first, before we head that way, I'm going to read their letter, which is much shorter this time around, but you'll notice once again some common themes. Dear dumb police officers, don't tell a lie. All crimes begin with a lie, as we say in Japan. Don't you know that? Simply.
So it would certainly seem like that's the theme. right? Like that's the connective tissue, that they feel as though the cops are only giving half truths about whatever it is. Because again, like we said through this entire thing, this is, kids, called an unsolved mystery. And so like we don't have clear definitive anything. So it would certainly jive with what you were saying earlier. You know what I mean? Like that seems to be, there seems to be an increasing amount of credibility that they think they're lying, and like the bottom shelf option for what they would be lying about is conviction rate in the legal system and the whole nine yards. And so like, to me, in my zennial social justice mind, I hear this and I'm like, okay, so what we're doing here is we're attacking the justice system, and then we're turning around and we're hitting major corporations by taking out the goods, because doesn't matter how big the giant is. I can tell you from being a part of the business world, if money isn't exchanging hands, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And the second, and the biggest killer, especially for food and beverage companies, is breaking trust with with your audience. Once you have trust and you break trust, you're probably not getting it back. You're probably going to be on life support for a little while and then have to shut her up once the time comes. So to me, that's what I read. Like that is what is exactly in front of my face as far as a motive for this collection of people. Because I think, I don't know, man, like it just, I get vibes of multiple people that are just like giggling around the paper when doing this sort of thing. I think this is too much for one individual to be doing all by themselves.
Yeah, that's a very common interpretation here, and it makes perfect sense. Like, what is happening here and how they're wording things. Once again, if you can trust that as like we're actually putting our real thoughts out there, which there's speculation it might not be. This might be a misdirect, but if you take them at face value, this is a huge one. Of, you know, not only we're going to take you, we're going to shame you to police who are working as we see it as just like arms of these companies. We're going to make you lose value. We're going to make them lose value in the eyes of the people, lose their trust in you. Which brings us, and I'm so glad you said what you said earlier, to America 2 years before this. Chicago, 1982. Some of you may have heard of something known as the Chicago Tylenol murders.
Yeah.
In 1982, multiple stores, multiple locations, children, adults died because they consumed tampered with Tylenol.
Oh, yeah.
Now, let me tell you, good people, how is this possible? Well, we've got those seals and everything on there to assure that nothing like this happens. Well, guess what didn't exist then? Any of that. You could just take it off in the middle of the store and pop a couple pills if you really wanted to. There was nothing stopping you from doing any of that. But because of what happened there, it revamped the entire industry of pharmacy and medicine to where you have to have a seal on it. You have to have it locked up and set away to make sure no one can tamper with it, because no one knew. Once again, this is another unsolved one we might do later on. And the idea, no one knows who did it. No one knows what the motive was behind it. I believe 7 people died, and it caused a moral panic across all of America. It's like, how could you let this happen to us? Well, no one had thought about it. It's kind of like the same thing with the DB Cooper, kidnapping of the plane. It's like it happened multiple times before, but there was nothing really in place to stop it until these things kept happening. And you go, okay, well, maybe we should do something about that. And clearly it wasn't good enough because, we lived through 9/11, and that had to happen too as a result of it. Otherwise, people, they just came up to the plane. They would just go to the stores and buy their medicine, because why would you think someone would tamper with it? That's not how things are supposed to work. And yet it happened. So because of other people acting evilly, we have an entire system change the result. So this may be a huge inspiration for the monster with 21 faces, given it's happening 2 years afterward. Now, I haven't doing the research with it, I just kind of think, I kind of sounds so suspicious. Which one happened first? I asked the same thing. Like, oh no, it happened first in America because we do things worse first. Thank you, everyone. And then they did it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So I couldn't tell you like intimate details of the Tylenol murders, but it's one that I'm aware of. But I didn't even it didn't even dawn on me to think about that because you just it's not think about that sort of thing. So yeah, no, that makes total sense, and especially if that was the inspiration there, and that widespread change happened because of what happened there, then you look elsewhere for something that's unassuming, like pills are unassuming, and ipso facto you've got poison candy.
Yeah. So once again, I haven't seen too many people say that. I don't know if I'm the original. I'm just that much better than everyone else. It just happened along the way as I was like, man, that sounds kind of familiar. And I'll throw that in there, see if anyone cares.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. There's so many, like, everything is a derivative of everything else. So we are, and uh, at that point in
Yeah.
time, there would have been a certain level of dissemination of information in place. So it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to think that somebody from Asia would have heard about something as
Major.
unique, major,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like first of its kind, that something in the public supply was what, or at least first of its kind to my knowledge. People in the true crime world are freaks and weirdos, so I always have to put the asterisk next to it because they will come for blood.
Yep. Yep. All right. So moving on from there, for unknown reasons, the group at this point in time, well, the Monster with 21 Faces, gives up their assault on Glico, and months later would turn their attention to other businesses, but not before sending a letter to Glico on June 26th that they forgave them. They didn't say what or why they did, but they said they forgave them. So this has led to speculation of whether they were actually paid off by the company and they got their ransom. No financial records have been brought forward that I'm aware of in any way, shape, or form, or if they were like, the heat's on us too much with them. What if we go after someone else? And this is when they go after two different companies, Marudai Ham and the House Foods Corporation for a time.
Okay, so we're staying in the context of food and beverage companies.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not. It would again. It's plausible that they just paid him off because, like, honor in that culture is a
Yes.
very major commodity, and getting them to just back off. Like, how many zeros do need to be at the end of this check in order for you to go away, sort of
Yeah.
thing. Oh, okay, you know what I mean. Like I would certainly can't kick it out of bed over absurdity.
Yeah, I would say real quick, you picked up on something really great there in the shame honor culture of Japan. That would be very applicable to something that happens later on, and I will go ahead and warn people in advance. It's not the best, and we'll get there when we get there. And I'll do my best to warn you before I actually go over it for some of more sensitive in that regard. Um, so 2 days later, they had agreed, the Monster with 21 Faces, on a drop off, a two-way drop off on a train at Kyoto Station after they threatened Marudai. They were going to offer them 50 million yen, which at that point in time, I believe would have been $210,000. Thank God for the exchange rate things I could plug into Google and the like. So whether it's right or not, it's math. I don't care. The police were heavily involved in this thing. Like they were contacted pretty much as soon as it happened. I think it happened in the earlier case as well with Glico. And that's one of the things I think the group kind of felt the heat, so they were going to someone else, and it just happened again. Uh, the company was going to send a person to pick up the drop off from the train, but the police put an undercover agent there in their clothing to make it look like they weren't someone. They were just a person from that company. Now, this undercover police investigator described being watched by a man on the train who was very healthy, kind of large in height, who had like, short hair, was kind of in a perm, and wore sunglasses. But when he could actually see his eyes, the officer described him as kind of having like a fox-like appearance. And this led to the man being called the fox-eyed man by the police, by investigators, by the press and everything. And actually, we'll wait for that. So at this time, the guy kind of looked like he was getting a bad feeling from the guy he was supposed to make the drop off with. So he would go to a different train. The guy would follow him, letting his other officers to go that way. They would change to different stations. He'd go to a different train car, and eventually he got lost by the police in the midst of all this. Now, I will say real quick, the idea of him being referred to as fox-eyed has a lot of cultural importance to it as well, in that Japan reveres foxes, especially your Shintoists in that regard, because they are worshipped very much. You got your Inari statues and everything there. They're viewed as being very clever, using deception, but not like in a terrible way. They're kind of like folksy. You got the yokai kitsune stuff as well, nine-tailed fox and everything involved with that. It's like these tricksters who they can cause harm, and they have done terrible things, but yokai logic isn't human logic, so they don't see it the same way we do. So this kind of got people excited in the fact that maybe he's actually a kitsune, brought to life. He's actually a yokai, and that's why he's doing all this mischief to take down these terrible companies. So they definitely used this to their advantage, from what I've seen, without naming it in any letter that I saw. But you could tell they were super happy people started bringing this up.
Yeah. That's an example of the court of public opinion adding to the mythology of a figure.
And that's if this guy is part of the group at all, which he's acting kind of shifty. Or maybe he thought that someone was really looking at him a lot and he got scared and tried to get away, but kind of feels like he's our guy.
Yeah.
He just managed to slip away. So several months from then, the group then sends out a letter on November 1st, notice the gap, to the home of Mitsuo Yamada, who worked for Morinaga Dairy as their vice president. And in it, they said this to him. To President, you saw our power, didn't you? If you disobey us, we will destroy your company. You will get killed. Decide whether or do you want to see your company destroyed? Tell us in the Mainichi newspaper on either the 5th or 6th of November. Use the missing persons. That's kind of could be like a missing persons, like you're trying to find them, but also like a kind of missing connections kind of thing. That used to be big back in the day, without cell phones and the media and the like.
Connections, yeah.
Yeah. Use these words in the reply: Jiro, Morinaga, mother, police, bad friend, money, meal. As we said before, we want 200 million yen. Monster with 21 faces.
Okay.
Now, go ahead.
My first question is, has anybody, or do you have the significance of what feels like word salad?
From what I studied, I don't know if there's a set agreement on why. I kind of go with the idea of this is literally word salad and they're trying to throw people off.
Yeah.
Some people say no, it's this guy named Jiro, who knows a Morinaga that he sees as a mother, who hates the police, blah, blah, blah. And it keeps going down that line, but there's very little evidence behind really any assertion made. It could just be them screwing with people. And I kind of take that a little more because it feels very in character.
Yeah, for sure. This feels pointed, but in a we're sowing chaos as well sort of way.
Yeah. So Morinaga replied to the local ads with the words they wanted. From the research I found, I couldn't see if they paid them off or not. But given what happened the last time, this is probably one of those other things where they set up a drop-off, but the police got involved and they figured it out. And we'll figure out why they potentially could have known about some of that in a bit to the sting. And they just didn't get the money there. And they kind of gave up on them. Okay. And moved to a different company. So in the midst of all this, we get letters addressed, literally addressed to the moms of the nation. Every mother in Japan, this is addressed to you. And the monster with 21 faces is now threatening their children by revealing that they had laced even more candy with deadly additives. And an actual search of the candy in question led to the discovery of at least 21 packages of just
Mm.
various candies that had been laced with the potassium cyanide. And this caused Morinaga to lose have a 90% loss of profits.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah.
Um, much the same way with the Tylenol murders, like the company there, they lost a lot, but they spent a lot in trying to regain their image. So this is what another things the companies would have to do here too, is like, okay, everything's safe now. We've got them vacuum sealed or whatever. So who knows if that was their objective or not. Uh, this is when the group attempts to receive another ransom, this time from the House Food Corporation. They were offering them 100 million yen, $410,000 at the time. And this is when police also witnessed who they assumed to be, or may even have been, the fox eyed man around them. And he barely evaded police capture. But what makes this worse is that an hour beforehand, a local policeman who was unaware of the sting was nearby. So departmentals not talking to each other, it's older than time. And saw a station wagon idling near the drop off spot and went to investigate the vehicle, put his flashlight up there, and that caused the driver to panic and flee the scene.
Mm.
Probably thinking, if this was indeed part of the Monster with 21 Faces, that he was about to get caught. They then found that the car was abandoned later on, and investigations allowed them to figure out it had been stolen. But the driver left no traces of himself in the vehicle outside of one important thing. It was like a shovel or something, a vacuum or something like that, but like it didn't lead anywhere. The other important thing being a radio transceiver, which they more than likely would have used to listen in on the police radio to see if they
Mm.
knew what they were talking about, if they were planning to do the sting. But unfortunately, that's all they got, and it's left another dead end in the case.
So just a series of unfortunate events.
Yes. The lack of communication, the inability to track them down as well as you thought you could, the
Mm.
fact that they're on high alert because you've already tried this multiple times over. Can you actually get the money this time? Are you going to send a patsy along? Who knows?
Right.
So it just didn't work out. It fizzled out.
Right.
So they weren't at their busiest at this point in time, the group. So they just sent out more minor attempts on other companies. Like some of these aren't even named from what I could tell. They tried, they failed to get ransom, and the investigation just dries up even more. And this is the point I was talking about earlier. For those of you who are very, sensitive to suicide and the like, uh,
Mm.
one of the lead investigators, Police Superintendent Yamamoto, committed suicide by self-immolating himself out of shame for
Mm.
his failure to catch them.
Aha.
It's very huge in Japanese culture and many honor shame cultures that if you're not doing that job as well as people think you should, you've lost the right to live in many people's
Yeah.
eyes. And who knows if he was struggling with anything before this? This certainly didn't help, and he took his own life in the
Yeah.
midst of all this.
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
Yes. But a letter was sent out 5 days later. They responded when they heard that this happened, and they worded it this way: Yamamoto of Shiga Prefecture Police died. How stupid of him. We've got no friends or secret hiding place in Shiga. It's Yoshino Oshikata who should have died. These were other investigators who were involved. What have they been doing for as long as 1 year and 5 months? Don't let bad guys like us get away with it. There are many more fools who want to copy us. No career Yamamoto died like a man. So we decided to give our condolence. We decided to forget about torturing food making companies. If anyone blackmails any of the food making companies, it's not us, but someone copying us. We are bad guys. That means we've got more to do other than bullying companies. It's fun to lead a bad man's life. Monster with 21 Faces.
Oh, interesting. So now we have full blown admission that they're not in the moral driver's seat.
Yeah. And this is led to huge speculation. The motivations of the people involved. Did they panic because an officer actually, killed himself as a result of the things that they were doing? Guys, this isn't fun
Yeah.
anymore. We're actually causing a man to die. Or is it like from a practical, pragmatic kind of criminal way? It's like, oh no, now we look really bad. So let's just go out on a high note. It's like, hey, we'll call you a fool, but also at the same time, we'll call you, you did what you were supposed to do, unlike those other idiots out there who are still alive. So we're bad men living a bad man's life. Peace out.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
So this is when the group seems to have given up and disbanded. No future letters or communication was ever offered that was confirmed to be from them. They got your copycats every now and then. They could tell like differences in the writing and stuff like that, from what I
Right.
understand. So speculation has abounded. No one knows. Now, what was interesting to me as I was reading through this is the short amount of time Japan has on the statute of limitations for some of these things. Like the initial kidnapping uh, for the president earlier um, ended in March 1994, which would have been 10 years after it happened. And we're
Okay.
still the attempted murder charges offered for putting the confirmed cases they have of potassium cyanide ended in October 1999 and February 2000. So if I'm understanding this correctly, they can't get convicted if they ever came out and said something. I don't pretend to understand the law. I don't pretend to understand American law. I definitely don't understand the fullness of Japanese law. That sounds like even if they came out and said something like, too bad, you had your chance.
Yeah, I mean, and if unless in context it means something wildly different, I would come to the exact same conclusion
Yeah.
that like you can only the statute of limitations is there with the idea being that somebody can't be convicted of something in continuum, which
Yes.
your mileage may vary on your opinion of that.
Yeah. It's always been a weird thing to me. Once again, I don't pretend law and the reasons behind making
Yeah.
certain ones. It's like,
Well, it's weird
especially,
because it's a patchwork. It's a patchwork of nonsense that is designed to try and plug all of the holes while creating new holes.
yeah. I know, like America, I can't remember what it was several years ago, researching this, like sexual assault cases. The statute of limitations in so many states were so ridiculously short, it wasn't even funny. Like I was getting mad reading about some of them.
Yep. Yep, it's a good way to piss yourself off. Is research the legalities of that center around SA. It's disgusting.
Yeah. So one of the final legacies we have here is that this was one of the, if not the biggest, one of the biggest cases in Japan with how many people were involved in different
Yeah.
departments and different parts of Japan. Over 1 million police officers are believed to have worked on this case at one point in time. And that is astounding. Uh, they had gone over in this time more than 2,800 tips, 28,000 tips offered by the public and investigated almost 125,000 potential suspects. Joe, we're about to list them all off as we head next. No, we've got like one named guy and the rest because I'm not going to waste your time like that. But the sheer amount of work that was put in here and you've got nothing, no wonder they felt so bad about how they were running this. I get it.
Yeah. 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 This and in a culture that would be more open to the mystical, it's no big surprise that this captured the imaginations of everybody that's caught wind of what's happening, because even in our individualistic culture there's still like anytime that there is a an unnamed criminal that was striking at large, it still catches everybody's eye. You know what I mean? And so, how
Yeah.
much more in that culture? Yeah, I mean, it feels like this is an example of people that were willing to go only so far when they thought when processing like what they were willing to do, they understood their upper bound limit on what they were willing to do, and then something outside of that happened, and so they tap danced off the scene. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they said a thing and then exit stage right, and it became no longer it no longer became, I guess, fun or advantageous or whatever the word is there. It's no longer that, and so they went quiet because they're no longer doing it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean that makes sense, especially because we're talking about the 80s. And so forensic science on top of
Mm.
just general information it would be a lot easier for something like this to happen then than it would now.
There's one thing I did forget to mention earlier, and that Japan at this point in its history is at the height of an economic boom as far
Mhm.
as, production and trade. Like it got to the point where the trope started showing up in American media, like Japan takes over the world, as it were,
Oh yeah.
fears of the foreigner. I mean, that's why Nakatomi Plaza is in Die Hard, is because people thought, well, they're just going to come over here and put their businesses here. But
Yeah.
now we're just dealing with the Saudis. It changes.
Yep. Yep.
So that may have been a motivating factor in all of this. Like you're at the height of your economic superiority here as a nation, but like look at what's happening around us. Look what these companies are doing. So that could have been a motivating factor. So you ready for suspects, Joe?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. All right. So the named suspect we have, who's our primary suspect, because the Japanese police, this was their primary suspect for a time, is Manabu Miyazaki. He was a local worker for Glico. He'd had multiple incidents with the company because of their anti-union policies and alleged dumping of toxic materials. He had fought with them multiple times over, had raised hell, as it were, to like make sure that they were held accountable. And it seems like very little was done. So speculation abounded in that, oh, well, if I can't get it done legally, I can do it extra legally, as it were,
Yeah.
and cause harm that way. And then to throw suspicion off myself, I'll go after these companies too. And they're just as bad. So I'm still getting stuff done, was
Yep.
the thought process as well. He kind of sort of looks like the composite photos of the Fox-eyed man. You put them side by side, there's similarities. I wouldn't really say like, yeah, it's a one-to-one match, but like you can see why they would like nail him as a suspect based on a picture. Um, the other big thing that happened that caused them to really look into him is that his father was a local leader of the Yakuza in that area. So he's already got connections to crime. So what's that from honest worker, as you're supposed to be, versus going out against the man?
Yeah.
But they later cleared him because he had very solid alibis for the times, the kidnapping and everything in that regard. So it doesn't, rule him out as someone who could have coordinated all this as like a ringleader, but at the same time, they still felt like, no, I think we're done enough. It can't be him.
Okay.
So this is where we get into. I didn't really know how to narrow this down, so I just said unknown persons turning to crime for the first time. So, given the amateurish nature of some of the crimes and the
Yeah.
handling of the police, this has been offered as an explanation as to why they kind of sucked at certain aspects of crime. Like you kept trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results with the drop off. Why didn't you think of something else to do? Has been thrown out. Well, obviously they don't know what they're doing in the first place. The randomness of the poisoning, as far as
Yeah.
like you didn't do it multiple places. You did like well, they did multiple places, but it didn't do enough to where it would feel more widespread. So maybe they were just limited, or maybe they just didn't know what they were doing. Then, of course, political activism. Now,
Right.
as I said, the what?
Yeah. No, I'm
Oh,
tracking.
okay. Okay. So Japan, like I said earlier, has a big history. It was more the 70s than the 80s, but there was still splinter groups left over. And when you get into the 90s, that you see reasons for why like something like an Aum Shinrikyo can come on the stage because a lot of people are looking for something. This is in the midst of their depression after that, but right now they're at the height of their economic prowess, as it were.
Yeah.
And I say mix left and right wing because when you actually look into it, there are multiple all over and like smaller groups that would have done something like this. Like some groups had maybe as many as 3 people in them, some 7, some like
Right.
20, some 100. um but none of them laying a claim to any of this outside of like naming themselves the monster with 21 faces. That's one reason why some people think maybe not, even though there would be a political motivation behind this, in that a lot of these companies are dumping toxic waste and other things they shouldn't be doing. They're not treating their employees well. They're anti-union in all this regard. So that has been thrown as a possible thing. We get into more of a fringe one. That's like rival companies. So rival companies like, oh, you have candy, we have candy. You work ham, I work ham. Well, what if I make it look like your ham is poison, your candy is poison, but mine's fine, guys?
Yeah.
So buy mine instead, which is an interesting motive, but given what we've dealt with, I don't know, it doesn't feel like that to me. I don't know. What do you think about that?
So, the first thing that came to my mind is that I would have to be careful with this because, yes, industrial espionage, 100% a thing. So not outside of the realm of possibility. However, we are talking about a people group that has it. It doesn't get focused on nearly as much just how many stereotypes have lived under the surface as far as people from the east goes. So I don't know how much of the plausibility that would come up in my head is born out of a legitimate, like, I'm a legitimate POV about the entirety of this case and like, oh yeah, no, that naturally seems like something that would happen, or if it's my very American influence showcasing and you just don't know. You know what I mean? So like that. So
Yeah.
if you are watching this and you would know the difference, understand all of the heavy lifting is being done by the fray. If this actually, like, if all things are equal, then yeah, that makes total sense to me. That uh, in the buffet of options, I cannot wholly and completely cross off the list the idea that somebody from one company sabotaged another company at the height of economic competition, especially if these companies and somebody who would have done more research, probably that wasn't me, probably would have asked the question of how dominant were these companies at the time. You know what I mean? Like, are we talking about big players? Are we talking, you know what I mean? So like all,
Yeah.
like when you're looking up, like when you're looking at the variety of businesses, there are certainly examples that on their face seem like, yeah, that is one of the potential options. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this, my I think in my mind, I would be quicker to get to the equivalency of a PETA activist with a can of paint throwing it on somebody's fur, sort of thing, like political
Yeah.
activism, social activism, that sort of thing, and like that being the place in which this is coming from, rather than it being specifically corporate based. But who knows?
I'm glad you said that. Yeah. I guess with my biases up, if this had been in America, that probably would be my top suspect. Uh, like rival company. Like I'm not saying like it wouldn't happen in Japan.
Yeah,
Like, people aren't monoliths. They're not 100% always going to be their culture, but it just
yeah,
doesn't feel Japanese to me. And whether
yeah,
I'm in the
yeah.
wrong for that, you can let me know, guys.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I,
that's where
I I
I'm at.
think I think it's an educated guess. You know what I mean? Like I think it's all educated guessing, but it would seem like I would certainly be inclined to agree with you that, especially if we're keeping it in the context of the 80s, if we're talking about America, the first place that I'm going is economic downfall. You know what I mean? Now
Yeah.
today that might be different, but then in the 80s, yeah, we're going with economics in America. But because the culture is different, or at least from my American influenced point of view, it would seem like the culture would that wouldn't be the most common motivating factor if you're talking about an organization, body of people, something like that, targeting these corporations for a specific reason outside of just sowing chaos, or criminals that are like, hey, we did this, and or this seems like this is an easy way to make money and we're geared up to do this, and so we're going to keep trying to do this very specific thing.
I'm glad you said that because the next suspect we have, the final one, at least from the list I had, is the Yakuza. Uh,
Mm.
Organized crime in Japan. Think mafia. If you know nothing about Japan, just It's not the same, but it's enough to get it in your head. Organized
Yeah.
crime.
Yeah.
Handled very differently, more Bushido culture in some respects. Like everyone plays up, everyone wants to pretend like they're the Godfather and the mob now, because of the movie. Everyone wants to pretend because of that culture in Japan. Some people actually legitimately are there when they're conducting things as part of the opposite. So they've been long suspected to be in all aspects of this case because it was considered a massive, amazing coincidence that the letters stop the moment that the Yakuza began fighting in an internal feud between different groups in what is known as the
Ah.
Yamaichi War that began in 1985 around this time and wouldn't end until 1989.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that has been a huge speculation. That number one, they're crime organizations, so they know how things can be done. The ransom, that's something they're naturally able to do. They'd already had
Yeah.
group members in place to order them around. Um, and the fact that this war happens like right around the time that they give up, well, we have to work on other things, is what some people would speculate.
Yeah. I mean, that makes as much sense as a lot of the possible answers.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to move on to pop culture influences. Now, since this is not well known out of Japan, the only things I have in front of me are Japanese in nature. If you think of something else, let us know in the comments. But first off is Lady Joker. This is a novel written by Kaoru Takamura. I thought that I owned this novel by her, but I was wrong. I merely saw it once and thought about buying it. It's one of those fake memories you kind of give yourself. This was heavily inspired by the case. Now, what I really do know and I actually own is Ghost in the Shell standalone complex season 1 and season 2.
Hmm.
This is an anime, Joe. I don't know if you've watched it before. Uh,
Haven't watched it,
this
but I know
is
it.
season 1 was immensely inspired. Okay. It's immensely inspired by the events. As to the nature of the Laughing Man case, that's kind of the focus of season 1. There's a lot of Monster 21 Faces influence there, as well as some loose inspiration in the second season for the individual 11 arc. So now in hindsight, I can see all of that and go, oh, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay. So, final judgments, Joe. What do you think?
I think this is one of those cases that will live on in infamy because of the series of individual contributing components. I think it's right time. I think it's right culture. I think it's the perfect cocktail for ammunition stories for shows like ours. You know what I mean? Things that you
Yeah.
can only say possible, maybe is, what if sort of thing. Um, it seems like at my you know first examination, by and large, like this is a group of people that started off in one place and got in over their head or had something else happen that drove them away from what they were doing or something along those lines. This does not, there are parts of it that seem like it's organized chaos. There are other parts of it that feel affected by outside circumstances that they weren't prepared for, that they couldn't handle, that they didn't see coming, or something along those lines. At least at sniff test, that seems to be the pretty close to the surface through line of the whole thing. I do think it's multiple people. I don't think it's one individual person. I do think the Fox Eye Man is probably a part of this group, because if you are that guy and you know that now that I say it, you could stay away because you're afraid that they will not listen to you and that they will think that you are just trying to exonerate yourself. So maybe I'm exactly wrong, and that guy wasn't connected to it, and he didn't come forward because the police system is corrupt.
Yes. Yeah, I'm on a similar track to you. Like, after looking at everything here, I think the culprit is multiple people. It's even if it's
Mm.
just some guy in charge of other people as a ringleader. But I also get the sense that they weren't previously involved in crime.
Yeah.
And they sought to try and make easy money from the ransoms. And they were diabolical enough to like poison children's candy, but also warned people in advance that they were doing it. Because I don't think
Yeah.
they wanted the death of a child on their hand. They just wanted the moral panic that would ensue from it.
Yeah.
But like I said, got in over their heads, and they gave up not to get caught, especially after a police superintendent, commits suicide the way that he does. In this, like, I think enough of their morals were riled up to say, okay, guys, fun's over. We don't
Yep.
want to go to
Yep.
prison, but we don't want to cause the death of someone else because
Yeah.
there's no way of weaseling out of that one. We're done. We got what we could get.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the kind of case that interests me because it's absurd at points, it's thought provoking at points, it's laid out in a way that man, this is weird, but still plausible inside the context of crime, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I had a lot of fun researching this one, like actually getting into the case. It's one of those like all these cases we discussed, like I knew them, but like actually putting the work and effort into it to know them better. This is why we do
Yeah.
this. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, what do you believe, dear listeners and viewers? Who was or were the monster with 21 faces? Was it one of the suspects listed tonight, or someone completely different? We didn't touch everything that history and folklore have on the subject tonight, 125,000 suspects. So let us know in the comments below if there's something you'd like us to do a follow up on. In the description down below. Oh, nope. I didn't put that there. That's from a previous one. Forgot to take that out. Forget what I said. No cuts. Next time, we will be moving on to our next category, ufology, where we will be discussing the Flatwoods Monster, old favorite of mine. Maybe we'll talk for 10 minutes. Maybe we'll talk for an hour. Who knows? So thanks for guys for everything you do. Till next time. See ya.
Bye.